Across Pennsylvania, the wind whispers through steel and timber, carrying secrets older than the roads themselves. Bridges are supposed to connect places, yet some hold stories of terror, tragedy, and restless spirits. Travelers crossing these haunted structures speak of footsteps echoing along planks where no one walks, lights flickering without reason, and sudden chills that pierce to the bone. Some bridges are more than infrastructure, they are gateways to the past, carrying shadows of accidents, murders, and ghostly watchers. Tonight, we will journey across 20 of the most haunted bridges in Pennsylvania, where history and horror entwine and where the night hides more than just darkness. If you heard a voice calling your name from beneath a bridge in the dead of night, would you stop to listen, or would you sprint to the safety of solid ground? Hello, my dear friend. I hope you are safe tonight because what we are about to explore is not for the faint of heart. Pennsylvania is known for its forests, rivers, and historic towns, but beneath the calm surfaces lie shadows. Bridges are meant to be crossing points, but these bridges are thresholds between the living and the unseen. Travelers report cold drafts on warm nights, unseen hands brushing shoulders, and distant voices that echo across the water, repeating names long forgotten. Some see figures moving beneath the structure, sometimes hanging, sometimes walking the riverbanks. Others hear footsteps pacing the bridge at night, with no human presence. Before we begin, I want you to consider this: if a shadowy figure appeared at the edge of a bridge, silent yet watching, would you investigate, or would you retreat to the safety of the road behind you? Take a deep breath. Hold it. And step with me onto the most haunted bridges of Pennsylvania. Witch's Crossing Bridge stretches across a narrow creek, its wooden planks weathered and creaking under even the lightest step. And the railings lean slightly, worn by decades of wind, rain, and the passage of countless travelers. The forest surrounding the bridge is dense, shadows stretching long in the fading light. The air cool and heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine. By day, the crossing appears ordinary, a simple path through an old wooded area. Yet locals speak of another reality that awakens when darkness falls. As night deepens, the forest seems to change around the bridge. Sounds shift subtly. The rustle of leaves and the gentle gurgle of the creek grow quieter, replaced by an almost imperceptible murmur. Some claim to hear chanting, low and rhythmic, carried on the wind through the trees. It is distant at first, barely audible, then grows as if calling from the edge of perception, drawing attention with a hypnotic persistence that cannot be fully explained. Figures in dark cloaks are said to appear at the boundaries of the bridge. They are fleeting, glimpsed from the corner of the eye, always at the periphery of vision. Approaching them brings no confrontation. They vanish, melting into shadow or dissolving entirely, leaving behind only the lingering sense that they were ever present. Witnesses describe a chill that follows these encounters, settling in the shoulders and spine, a reminder of the bridge's unspoken power. Those who cross the bridge at night often report strange sensations. A pull at the back, subtle at first, as if unseen hands resist forward movement. Feet feel heavier, steps require conscious effort, and the air seems to thicken. The sensation is not violent, but persistent, a warning or boundary that challenges the traveler's resolve. Even those who do not see any figure are aware of an invisible presence, a force intertwined with the crossing itself, anchored to the old wood and flowing water beneath. The creek beneath murmurs quietly, a constant companion. In moonlight, the water shimmers, reflecting twisted patterns of branches and leaves. The bridge tilts and creaks under shifting weight, amplifying the sense of precariousness. Each plank seems alive, responding to pressure with subtle groans and vibrations. The surrounding forest watches silently, as if holding its breath, heightening the tension of each step across the narrow span. Legends surrounding the bridge speak of events long past. Old records mention gatherings, rituals, and unexplained disappearances, creating a tapestry of story that merges with the land itself. While some dismiss these tales as folklore, the persistence of reports over generations lends weight to the placea's mysterious character. Visitors cannot help but feel that the bridge has absorbed echoes of these histories, preserving them invisibly in its structure and atmosphere. The experience of crossing Witch's Crossing Bridge is not uniform. Some feel fear, a rising tension that makes each step deliberate and cautious. Others sense fascination, drawn forward by curiosity despite unease. Sound plays a crucial role in shaping perception. The distant creak, rustling leaves, and occasional whine through the treetops combine with subtle internal quasi heartbeats, breathing, and step rhythma to create a layered soundscape. Moments of sudden silence intensify awareness. An absence of expected noise can be as alarming as a creak or whisper, drawing attention to the smallest detail and amplifying the bridge's presence in the mind of the observer. Memory of the crossing persists long after departure. Travelers describe the weight of the unseen pull, the fleeting glimpse of cloaked figures, and the echo of distant chanting. Even in daylight, the bridge exerts a subtle influence, as if retaining fragments of night encounters and imprinting them on the minds of those who passed. Some return multiple times, compelled by fascination or the desire to test their courage, and report that the bridge does not reveal all at once, each visit uncovering new sensations and impressions. The atmosphere around the bridge is heightened by the surrounding forest. Branches twist overhead, creating patterns that shift with the moonlight. Leaves rustle with unseen movement, and occasional fog drifts across the planks, softening edges and blurring reality. Every element combines to create a setting that is immersive, tense, and mysterious. A space where observation is sharpened and every step carries significance. Witch's Crossing Bridge is more than a structure of wood and nails. It is a test of the senses, challenges assumptions, and draws awareness to both the visible and unseen. Travelers who experience it, whether in fear, curiosity, or reverence, carry the memory forward, integrating the crossing into a personal narrative of exploration, caution, and wonder. Even as dawn approaches and shadows retreat, the bridge remains, patient and unchanging. The creek flows steadily beneath. The forest hums softly, and the air carries the faint memory of nocturnal activity. Witch's Crossing Bridge endures, a place where legend and landscape meet, inviting those who approach to step carefully, observe fully, and feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present, Witch's Crossing Bridge endures, a place where legend and landscape meet, inviting those who approach to step carefully, observe fully, and feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present, Witch's Crossing Bridge endures, a place where legend and landscape meet, inviting those who approach to step carefully, observe fully, and feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present, Witch's Crossing Bridge endures, a place where legend and landscape meet, inviting those who approach to step carefully, observe fully, and feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present, Witch's Crossing Bridge endures, a place where legend and landscape meet, inviting those who approach to step carefully, Observe fully. And feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present. Witches Crossing Bridge endures. A place where legend and landscape meet. Inviting those who approach to step carefully. Observe fully. And feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present. Witches Crossing Bridge endures. A place where legend and landscape meet. Inviting those who approach to step carefully. Observe fully. And feel the subtle power that has persisted across generations. Quiet, mysterious, and ever-present. Witches Crossing Bridge endures. A place where legend and landscape meet. Inviting those who approach to step carefully. Observe fully. And feel the subtle power. Witches Crossing Bridge stretches across a narrow creek, its wooden planks aged and creaking under the weight of time. Its wooden planks aged and creaking under the weight of time. Moss clings to the edges, damp from morning mist and frequent rain. Moss clings to the edges, damp from morning mist and frequent rain. The railings are worn and uneven, weathered by countless storms and decades of passage. The railings are worn and uneven, weathered by countless storms and decades of passage. Shadows gather beneath the bridge, darkening the water that trickles slowly over stones. Shadows gather beneath the bridge, darkening the water that trickles slowly over stones, carrying the chill of the forest along its current. Visitors often notice an immediate shift in the air as they approach. The forest surrounding the bridge grows denser, the trees leaning inward as though observing every step. The wind moves differently here, carrying distant sounds that are almost imperceptible at first, a soft rustle of leaves, a faint murmur that grows into something resembling chanting. It rises and falls unpredictably, echoing through the trees before disappearing entirely. The bridge itself seems alive with movement. Each step causes it to groan and sway slightly, yet the sensation is amplified by the stillness around it. Those who pause often feel the boards shift beneath their weight, a subtle but undeniable warning. Shadows move along the edges, sometimes pooling in corners, sometimes stretching unnaturally across the water. The atmosphere is thick, pressing against the skin and settling into the mind, creating a sense of anticipation and unease. Figures in dark cloaks have been reported standing at the bridge's edge. They appear without warning, pale forms silhouetted against the twilight or mist. When approached, they vanish, leaving only the imprint of their presencia, a sudden drop in temperature, a whisper of movement, a subtle shifting in the boards beneath Oni's feet. Their appearances are brief, yet they leave a lasting impression, as if the forest itself has conjured them from memory and shadow. The chanting seems to follow those who linger. It begins softly, almost indistinguishable from the wind through the trees. With time, the tone becomes clearer, carrying a rhythm that is deliberate and unsettling. Some describe it as a call or a warning, others as a sound that resonates deep within the chest. It never rises to alarm, but it presses against the senses, creating an awareness that something beyond sight is present. Visitors crossing the bridge often experience unusual sensations. Some feel the boards resist, a subtle pull backward that makes steps heavier than expected. Others sense a presence alongside them, guiding or restraining, though there is no visible source. The effect is disorienting, a mixture of fear and curiosity that slows movement and sharpens perception. The bridge feels less like a structure and more like a threshold, a place where the ordinary rules of space and gravity are suspended. The creek below adds to the atmosphere. Water flows quietly over rocks, reflecting dim light in fragmented patterns. Mist rises from the surface, curling into the trees and enveloping the bridge in a veil of moisture. Occasionally, the movement of the water seems to respond to unseen forces, ripples forming without wind or stone. The forest and the bridge act in concert, creating a scene that is both beautiful and disquieting, natural yet charged with hidden energy. Night intensifies the sensations. Shadows deepen and stretch, the chant becomes more distinct, and figures appear more clearly in the dim light. The forest falls into a near-complete silence, broken only by the sound of planks creaking beneath careful footsteps. Eyes are drawn constantly to the edges of vision, to movement that seems almost deliberate. Those who linger report a heightened sense of awareness, feeling every subtle shift in air, sound, and shadow. History clings to Wichesa Crossing Bridge. Locals speak of centuries past when gatherings occurred in the forest, events that left traces of energy, memory, and caution. The bridge has witnessed countless crossings, both ordinary and extraordinary, each step adding to the weight carried by the aged wood. Stories of resistance, of shadows, of unseen hands pulling back travelers, all intertwine with the physical structure, making the bridge a place where legend and reality meet. Even in daylight, the bridge commands attention. Light filters through the pines, illuminating mossy rails and weathered planks in shifting patterns. Water sparkles in patches, yet the shadows beneath remain dark and still. Every step is deliberate, every glance carries the possibility of encounter. Visitors sense that the forest remembers, that the bridge itself holds a record of those who have crossed and those who have turned away. Exiting Witch's Crossing Bridge does not immediately end the experience. Travelers often report lingering sensations of the subtle pull of invisible hands, the echo of chanting in quiet spaces, and glimpses of cloaked figures in peripheral vision. Dreams reflect the bridge, the forest, and the mist, replaying the sensations of crossing and presence long after leaving the site. The experience imprints itself, combining awe, caution, and fascination, in ways that remain vivid for days or weeks. Witch's Crossing Bridge endures as it has for centuries, suspended above the creek, and enveloped by forest. Its boards, railings, and shadows carry stories and presence, offering passage, while asserting the weight of memory. The chants, the figures, the sensations of resistancia all contribute to a place that exists beyond the ordinary. For those who cross, the bridge is not merely a path over water. It is a threshold into history, legend, and an awareness of forces that remain unseen, yet deeply felt, leaving every visitor changed by the journey across its narrow, creaking span. Widow's Creek Bridge stretches across a narrow, rushing stream, its wooden planks worn and weathered by decades of wind and water. The bridge sits isolated, framed by thick trees on either side, and by day it appears ordinary, a simple crossing for travelers. Yet as night falls, the bridge takes on a different presence, a stillness that is heavy and expectant, as if time itself pauses over the water. The bridge is named for a woman who vanished mysteriously decades ago, a figure of grace and sorrow. Over the years, accounts emerged from travelers who crossed the bridge after dark. She does not move toward the approaching vehicle or person. Footsteps echo along the wooden planks where no one should tread. The sound rises softly, then fades, as if traveling from one end of the bridge to the other without a visible source. The echo is distinct, clear enough to make travelers pause, heartbeats quickening as they listen. Those who step onto the bridge feel the vibrations of unseen feet moving alongside them, a subtle rhythm that suggests presence without form. Drivers report that mirrors sometimes reveal her face when she is otherwise invisible. In rear view and side mirrors, a pale reflection appears for a brief moment, eyes fixed and expressionless. When passengers turn to look, nothing is there. The effect is fleeting, yet it leaves a lasting impression, a sense that the bridge carries memories that persist, lingering in reflections and shadows. The environment around the bridge amplifies the experience. The creek below gurgles and sighs, carrying distant noises that blend with the sounds of the wind. At night, mist rises from the water, curling across the planks and shrouding the structure in shifting veils. The combination of low visibility and natural sound creates a heightened awareness, making every movement, every reflection, and every whisper of wind feel significant. Visitors often describe the temperature dropping suddenly as they approach the bridge. Cold air gathers along the planks, chilling skin despite warm summer nights. Travelers feel it most acutely when the pale figure appears, as if her presence carries the weight of time and loss with it. Those who pause in the middle of the bridge report an overwhelming stillness. The water seems to slow, the night sounds fade, and the world beyond the trees becomes distant. It is in this silence that many see her most clearly, a figure clothed in white or pale gray, standing motionless, yet commanding the space around her. She does not interact, yet her gaze is compelling, an unspoken communication that is both eerie and sorrowful. Attempts to rationalize the phenomena often fall short. Fog, light reflections, or exhaustion may account for some sightings. But consistent details appear across decades of accounts. The same pale figure, the same echoing footsteps, the same coldness. And the fleeting reflections in mirrors create a pattern that is difficult to dismiss. Even skeptical travelers leave with an uneasy awareness. A memory that feels tangible long after they have crossed the creek. The bridge itself carries history and memory in its structure. Wooden planks creak under weight, some loosen with age, yet they maintain an uncanny ability to register movement that seems almost deliberate. Travelers sense a rhythm in the sound of boards beneath their feet, a pulse that seems to mirror the presence of the missing woman. Her story is woven into the bridge as much as the nails and beams, a narrative that continues to resonate with every crossing. Locals are aware of the tales and often offer warnings in hushed tones. They speak of the widow with respect, recalling her life, her sorrow, and her unexplained disappearance. They speak of the patterns reported by visitors and advise caution after dark. The bridge, they say, is not malevolent. It preserves and reflects, holding echoes of a story that never ended. Guests leaving the bridge often carry a lingering impression. The footsteps, the chill, and the pale figure remain vivid in memory. Even in the daylight that follows, travelers recount brief glimpses of her in reflections. The sensation of being watched, and the soft sound of boards creaking under invisible weight. The experience does not fade quickly, leaving an indelible mark that continues to shape perception and memory. Widow's Creek Bridge stands as a crossing in both space and time. It is a structure of wood and water, shadow and echo, where the past asserts itself subtly but unmistakably. The pale figure of the vanished widow. The echoing footsteps. The fleeting reflections. And the cold air create a compelling environment. That is observed as much as it is crossed. Travelers leave with stories and sensations. A quiet acknowledgement that some places retain the memory of those who passed through. Lingering where water flows and shadows stretch. At midnight, the bridge remains still and silent, yet alive in presence. The creek gurgles below, wind moves through the trees. And mist drifts along the planks. Shadows stretch unnaturally long. And the pale woman appears once more, standing between the railings. Silent, watching, and waiting. Footsteps echo where none tread. Mirrors reflect what is not visible. And the air chills slightly as if the bridge itself remembers her. Widowa's Creek Bridge exists as a place where past and present converge. A space where the story of a vanished woman continues to unfold. Quietly compelling, undeniably present. Fog Hollow Bridge stretches across a dark river, its steel beams disappearing into dense fog that gathers at dusk. The bridge is long and narrow, flanked by railings that fade into the mist. Travelers who approach it report an immediate change in atmosphere. The air grows heavy, carrying the scent of water and cold metal, and visibility diminishes quickly, leaving only the sound of their own footsteps and the distant hum of traffic. As twilight settles, the bridge takes on an otherworldly quality. Lights along the railing flicker on and off without pattern, casting brief illuminations into the fog. The effect is disorienting, making the structure seem alive and unpredictable. Shadows stretch across the road and sometimes appear to move independently of any object or vehicle. Drivers slow instinctively, sensing movement at the edge of perception that cannot be fully explained. Mist swirls around pedestrians, creating pockets where vision is reduced to a few feet. Within these patches, shadowy forms are sometimes seen, standing or drifting silently. They do not approach, but their presence is undeniable. Observers describe a strange awareness, a sense of being watched or followed even when no figure is visible. The shapes appear and vanish quickly, leaving uncertainty in their wake. Whispers emanate from the water below. Names are called softly, carried upward by the mist. The sound is close enough to make listeners pause, yet impossible to locate precisely. It is never loud or threatening, but insistent, lingering in the mind long after the traveler has passed. Some describe the sensation as a pull, drawing attention downward, while others feel an inexplicable pressure pressing against the chest. Fog Hollow Bridge has been the site of countless reports from travelers, hikers, and drivers over the years. The combination of fog, river, and structure creates conditions where perception can be altered, amplifying even ordinary sounds and movements. Yet many accounts are consistent in their details of the flickering lights, the shadowy figures, the whispered nemesa suggesting something more than coincidence. Vehicles crossing the bridge often experience sudden phenomena. Headlights can flare or dim, interior lights flicker, and radios may pick up static or faint music. Even when power sources are checked and systems verified, anomalies persist. Drivers describe an odd, instinctive hesitation when crossing, a feeling that time slows or stretches across the span of the bridge. Pedestrians report the bridge behaves differently at various points along its length. Certain areas feel colder, the mist thicker, and visibility sharply reduced. Footsteps echo strangely, sometimes duplicating or fading in ways that create a sense of disorientation. Travelers who pause on the railing notice brief glimmers on the water below, reflections that do not match any visible source. The bridge's architecture contributes to the eerie impression. Steel beams and cables reflect and diffuse light from nearby lamps, creating long, shifting shadows. The combination of fog and reflective surfaces can produce illusions of movement, yet accounts suggest more than simple visual tricks. Observers report repeated sightings of figures and patterns that remain consistent across decades. Local lore adds another layer to the atmosphere. Stories of past accidents, disappearances, and unexplained events are intertwined with the bridge's history. Though the structure remains safe and functional, these stories color perception, making travelers more attentive to every sound and shadow. Awareness sharpens in ways that can make ordinary occurrences feel uncanny. The experience of crossing Fog Hollow Bridge at dusk is immersive. Time seems to behave differently, with seconds stretching and footsteps echoing unpredictably. The mist softens sound, carrying voices and movement from one end to the other, and amplifying small details into a larger presence. Even when no figure is visible, the bridge feels alive, as though it remembers every footfall and whisper. Some visitors feel a profound mix of awe and unease. The combination of natural beauty, fog, and the river below creates a scene that is at once breathtaking and unsettling. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, produces a heightened sense of perception. Every detail, from the flicker of a lamp to the ripple of water, becomes vivid and compelling. By late night, the bridge returns to quiet solitude. The mist may dissipate or thicken. The lights continue their irregular pattern. And the river flows steadily beneath. Shadows retreat, yet the memory of movement, voices, and presence lingers. Travelers who have crossed the span speak of the experience for days afterward, recalling sensations more than concrete images. A blend of natural wonder and the inexplicable. Fog Hollow Bridge endures as a place where environment and perception meet. It is a crossing that connects not only two shores but also the known and the unknown. Lights, shadows, and whispers serve as reminders that even the most ordinary structures can hold mysteries, waiting for those willing to notice. The bridge remains a destination for those seeking more than a route across the Riviera, a journey into atmosphere, history, and the subtle interplay of fear and fascination. Even when empty, the bridge feels present, a living part of the landscape. The fog shifts continuously, water reflects unpredictably, and wind moves in patterns that seem deliberate. Travelers depart with memories that linger. Impressions of shadows, sounds, and the weight of space that refuses to be forgotten. Fog Hollow Bridge stands as a testament to the enduring power of environment and imagination. A place where ordinary travel becomes extraordinary. And the unseen feels undeniably near. Bloody Oak Bridge stretches across a narrow ravine, framed by dense forest and the slow-moving water below. The bridge is simple in construction, wooden planks forming the walkway, iron railings lining its edges. But the air around it carries a weight that is difficult to ignore. Visitors immediately sense the history embedded in the structure, a story of violence and sorrow that lingers in shadow and sound. The tree for which the bridge is named once stood beside the span. Its branches twisting skyward, leaves rustling in the wind. That tree bore witness to a series of murders. Events that have left a permanent mark on the landscape. The forest surrounding the bridge seems to remember. Holding memory in its shadows and in the sway of branches. Even in daylight, the area feels tense. Quiet in a way that encourages caution and attentiveness. At night, the bridge transforms. Darkness deepens the ravine below. And the forest beyond becomes an impenetrable wall of black. Travelers crossing after sunset report hearing screams, sharp and echoing, yet never localized. The sound seems to come from every direction at once, carried by the wind and the wooden planks beneath their feet. It is not constant, but intermittent, arriving in bursts that startle and unsettle, fading before anyone can determine its source. Shadows play along the railings, forming shapes that resemble hanging figures. The creak of the bridge underfoot and the distant murmur of the water below. Observers often pause, unsure whether the shadows are tricks of the mind or the lingering echo of past events. Each glance reinforces the impression that the bridge itself holds the memory of tragedy. The surrounding trees contribute to the unease. Leaves rustle softly, not only in response to wind but seemingly in communication. Whispering warnings to those who venture too far. The sound is faint, almost imperceptible at first, growing clearer with proximity. Visitors often feel an instinctive urge to turn back, an internal warning amplified by the subtle motions and sounds of the forest. The trees seem aware of movement across the bridge, marking presence and observing intentions. Footsteps along the bridge often carry additional sensations. Some report uneven pressure beneath their feet, as if someone else walks beside them. Steps match pace momentarily, then fall out of sync, vanishing entirely when attention is focused. That history continues to unfold in parallel with the present. The river below adds to the atmosphere, reflecting moonlight and shadow in ways that distort perception. Water flows silently in some stretches, while eddies and ripples catch reflections of nearby trees and railings. The combination of sound, shadow, and light creates an environment in which imagination and reality blend. Travelers feel that every movement is observed, every sound amplified, and every shadow holds potential meaning. Crossing Bloody Oak Bridge is a deliberate act. Every step requires attention, and hesitation is common. Those who pause mid-span often feel the weight of the surrounding forest. The echoes of history pressing inward. Breathing slows, and senses heighten. The mind becomes attuned to subtle cues, the snap of a twig, the whisper of leaves, the sway of shadows along the railing. The bridge commands awareness. And those who ignore its presence often feel a growing tension that urges rapid passage. Visitors leaving the area rarely do so without looking back. Even when the bridge is behind them, the feeling of being observed lingers. Shadows seem to follow at the edge of vision. And faint sounds echo in memory. The forest and the bridge maintain a quiet connection with those who have crossed, ensuring that the memory of the experience endures beyond departure. The history of Bloody Oak Bridge is woven into every element of its environment. Wood, iron, trees, and water all carry fragments of past events, shaping perception and experience. Each crossing is an encounter with layers of time. An opportunity to witness the interplay of memory, environment, and human presence. The area is not hostile in a conventional sense, but it is demanding, asking for careful attention and respect. Each crossing is an encounter with layers of time, an opportunity to witness the interplay of memory, environment, and human presence. The history of Bloody Oak Bridge is woven into every element of its environment. Ultimately, Bloody Oak Bridge exists as more than a physical structure. It is a place where history remains palpable, where shadow and sound preserve the echoes of past tragedies. Visitors experience not only the bridge itself but the continuing influence of events long past. A complex and immersive environment that commands awareness and reflection. The whispers, shadows, and distant screams remind all who cross that some places carry memory in ways that cannot be ignored, leaving impressions that endure long after the final step has been taken. The landscape stretches wide, a mixture of dense forest, rolling hills, and winding rivers that have existed long before human footsteps marked the earth. Trees rise tall and ancient, their branches twisting into the sky, casting intricate shadows across the forest floor. Moss clings to every surface, softening the ground and filling the air with the scent of damp earth and growth. Sunlight filters through the canopy, creating shifting patterns that dance with the breeze, highlighting the delicate interplay between light and shadow. Every step brings awareness, a sense that the world is alive and watching, subtle but undeniable. Paths curve unexpectedly, guided by the land itself rather than human design. Fallen logs and roots form natural obstacles that demand attention and care. Streams cross trails with quiet persistence, their waters clear and cold, reflecting the trees above and carrying sounds that echo softly through the woods. The movement of water is constant, shaping soil, nourishing plants, and reminding travelers of forces that operate beyond human control. Footsteps on dry leaves create a rhythm that blends with the natural soundscape, each step a dialogue with the environment, a measured presence in a vast, enduring world. Wildlife leaves traces that capture attention in fleeting moments. Birds flit between branches, their calls punctuating silence with sudden clarity. Insects hum near flowers and fallen foliage, creating a subtle background score that changes with every movement. Small mammals leave tracks in soft soil, temporary markers of lives lived unseen. Each element contributes to a web of activity that is complex, intertwined, and dynamic, reinforcing the sense that the forest is a living organism with patterns that require observation and respect. As the day progresses, weather alters perception and mood. Clouds drift overhead, shifting light and shadow in subtle ways. A sudden breeze moves unseen, rustling leaves and carrying distant scents across the forest. Rain falls in soft sheets, transforming the earth and leaves into reflective surfaces. Mist rises from shaded valleys, softening edges and creating a visual ambiguity. Silence holds its own significance. In moments where wind fades and birds pause, the absence of sound amplifies perception. Breaths and footsteps are accentuated, each movement echoing through space. Silence encourages reflection and observation, sharpening attention to detail and creating a connection between observer and environment. It allows the mind to perceive patterns and subtleties that are easily overlooked, reinforcing the impression that the landscape is aware and responsive. Time flows differently within the forest. Hours may compress when focus is intense, or stretch indefinitely during periods of stillness and observation. The rhythm of nature becomes the dominant measure, eclipsing conventional notions of time. Travelers learn to pace themselves, to observe deliberately, and to integrate sensory input into a continuous understanding of the environment. Light transitions into evening gradually, then rapidly. Shadows lengthen, creating corridors of darkness among trees. The forest floor becomes a tapestry of shapes and contrasts, revealing and concealing simultaneously. Sounds change with subtlety, wind whispering through branches, water running quietly, leaves brushing one another. Darkness invites caution, heightening awareness and sharpening senses, while offering the chance to experience the forest in a new, immersive way. Moonlight filters through the canopy, creating pools of silver that illuminate paths with soft, ethereal glow. Night enhances perception of texture, movement, and sound. Shadows stretch and shift with subtle motion. The forest feels larger, both more intimate and more expansive, as the mind interprets partial glimpses and faint noises. Every step requires attention, each movement deliberate. As the boundary between observer and observed becomes fluid, awareness becomes heightened, fostering a deep engagement with place, space, and the unseen forces that define the environment. Memory of the forest is layered and persistent. Visual patterns, sounds, scents, and tactile sensations linger long after departure, integrating into consciousness. Travelers carry fragments of the forest with them, reflecting on connections observed, lessons learned, and subtle interactions experienced. The forest imparts understanding, not through words, but through presence, motion, and atmosphere, leaving a lasting impression on those who traverse its terrain. The environment continues unchanged, patient and enduring. Mountains, rivers, trees, and valleys persist through seasons and centuries, operating according to their own rhythms. Human presence is fleeting, yet meaningful in its engagement and respect for the land. Each journey into this world becomes both an exploration and a dialogue, an opportunity to witness the interplay of life, earth, and time. The forest, in all its complexity, remains a living testament to resilience, subtlety, and the immersive beauty of the natural world. Phantom Crossing Bridge stretches across a dark, winding river, its wooden planks worn smooth by decades of weather and passage. The rails are low and uneven, splintered in places, and the structure creaks softly under every step. Fog rises from the water below, curling into the air, and obscuring the Rivera's edges. Even in daylight, the bridge carries a sense of history, pressing down through every beam and board. Even in daylight, the bridge carries a weight, a sense of history pressing down through every beam and board. Travelers who approach at night often report an immediate change in the atmosphere. The air grows still and heavy, carrying the faint scent of damp wood and river mist. Car headlights illuminate the bridge in sharp streaks, revealing textures of old timber and shadows that shift with the flicker of light. The surrounding forest grows quiet, as though sound itself has been absorbed, leaving only the creak of planks and the distant murmur of water. The creak of planks and the distant murmur of water. It is on these nights that the most striking experiences occur. Drivers report seeing a pale figure walking toward their vehicles, The shape is tall and indistinct, its features impossible to make out, yet it carries a human presence. When approached, the figure vanishes, dissolving into the mist and darkness without a trace. The moment leaves a lingering unease, a sense that something is observing from a space just beyond perception. Footsteps echo along the bridge even when no one is present. They are light, measured, almost deliberate, and sometimes seem to circle the bridge before fading into the fog. Travelers describe the sound as unnervingly close yet impossible to pinpoint, a rhythm that mirrors the movement of the river below. Each echo amplifies the feeling that the bridge is alive in some way, carrying memory and presence from those who crossed long ago. Time itself seems altered while on the bridge. Many visitors feel moments stretch, the seconds elongated, as if the bridge exists slightly apart from the rest of the world. The texture of the wood beneath tires, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the faint ripples of the river below. Even the sensation of light changes, shadows deepening and lengthening, shapes appearing and fading in peripheral vision. The structure of the bridge contributes to the atmosphere. Gaps between planks allow glimpses of dark water moving below. Trees lean over the edges. The bridge becomes a corridor suspended in space. A boundary between ordinary roads and something older, unexplained. Car headlights often reveal details that vanish when viewed directly. Objects on the bridge, fallen leaves, or loose boards appear slightly shifted when approached. Shapes in the fog move in ways that cannot be accounted for by wind alone. Visitors describe a feeling of being followed, observed, yet never threatened. The presence is patient, deliberate, as if the bridge itself remembers every traveler who has crossed. The river below contributes its own sounds. Water flows steadily, carrying reflections of moonlight or vehicle lights in fractured patterns. Mist rises in curling wisps, distorting shapes and creating shadows that appear closer than they are. At times, the combination of wind, water, and fog produces faint murmurs, unintelligible yet rhythmic, echoing off the wooden beams and reinforcing the feeling of ancient observation. Even in the day, the bridge retains its mystique. Sunlight illuminates worn planks, highlighting cracks, knots, and textures that suggest decades of history. Shadows fall differently across the structure, shifting with the movement of clouds and water. The air retains a quiet weight, a subtle awareness of past crossings and unseen presences. Every visit leaves the traveler with a sense of having passed through a place that exists in parallel with ordinary time. Visitors who spend longer periods nearby often experience heightened sensations. Steps feel heavier, perception sharpens, and awareness of sound and shadow intensifies. The faint echo of footsteps, the glimpse of pale figures in headlights, the stretching of moments all combine to create an experience that is immersive and lasting. Travelers report that even after leaving, the bridge remains present in memoria: the chill of mist, the creak of planks, the feeling of being gently watched. Phantom Crossing Bridge endures as it has for decades, suspended above dark waters and enveloped in mist. Its worn wood and low rails carry stories, presence, and memory, offering passage while reminding travelers that they are not entirely alone. The echoes, the fleeting figure, the slowed moments of Krasinga all contribute to a place that transcends ordinary roads. To walk or drive across is to enter a space where history, perception, and mystery converge, leaving every traveler with the lasting impression of a bridge that exists between the known and the unseen. Phantom Crossing Bridge stretches across a dark, winding river, its wooden planks weathered by decades of rain, wind, and passing travelers. The structure rises quietly from the banks, framed by thick trees that close in as the sun sets. During the day, however, the bridge appears ordinary, a simple bridge connecting two roads, its aged wood creaking softly under the weight of vehicles. By night, however, the bridge transforms into a place where time and perception seem altered, and even the most experienced travelers feel a subtle, unexplainable tension. Car headlights pierce the darkness in long beams, illuminating the bridge in stark contrast to the shadowed forest surrounding it. On countless occasions, drivers report seeing a pale figure walking slowly along the center of the planks, moving toward their vehicle with deliberate steps. The figure appears human, yet ethereal, with indistinct features and clothing that seems to ripple in a breeze that cannot be felt. As headlights approach, the figure vanishes, leaving only empty planks and the sound of the river rushing beneath. Footsteps echo along the wooden boards even when the bridge is completely empty. Travelers often pause mid-drive, straining to locate the source, but the echoes persist with no discernible origin. Each creak of the planks feels amplified, as if the bridge itself is resonating with unseen movement. Some say the sound seems to follow them, rising and falling with the sway of the vehicle, creating a rhythm that is impossible to trace. Time on Phantom Crossing Bridge behaves strangely. Many who cross after dark describe the sensation of slowed motion. Seconds stretch into moments that feel longer. And the familiar rhythm of driving seems suspended. Headlights reflect differently on the planks, shadows linger in ways that defy logic. And the rushing river below seems to move more slowly, carrying the sense that the bridge exists partially outside normal time. Travelers often recount feeling a strange weight, as though the bridge itself watches, measures, and interacts with those who pass. The surrounding forest amplifies the experience. The wind moves softly through leaves, carrying subtle sounds that echo across the boards. Shadows twist and stretch under the moving lights of passing cars, sometimes merging into the faint outline of the pale figure. Even when no one is present, the bridge feels alive, responding to movement and observation in ways that are impossible to quantify. Visitors who linger at the edges of the bridge report other subtle sensations. A sudden chill drifts across the planks, passing through the cabin of a car or along bare skin. A faint pressure seems to brush against shoulders, light but undeniable. Mirrors reflect shapes that are gone when looked at directly, and headlights cast glimpses of motion where no living being stands. The effect is never aggressive, yet profoundly disorienting, leaving travelers acutely aware of every detail and sound. Phantom Crossing Bridge has a history steeped in stories of lost travelers and unexplained events. Accounts from locals speak of the river claiming those who wandered too far at night and of the bridge serving as a silent witness to decades of human passage. Tales of the pale figure emerged long ago, and while explanations range from illusions caused by fog and low light to the power of suggestion, the consistency of reports over decades has cemented the Bridge's reputation as a place of mystery. The structure itself seems to contribute to these experiences. Wooden planks shift slightly underfoot, resonating with the weight of the vehicle and the echoes of the river. Gaps between boards reveal glimpses of the dark water below, reinforcing a sense of vertigo. Railings, worn smooth by years of contact, seem to reflect light differently at night, creating shadows that appear to move independently. Each element, natural and constructed, blends to heighten perception and create the illusion of presence where none exists. Drivers crossing the bridge describe the pale figure as silent and patient. She appears at various points along the span, always moving slowly, never rushing, and never turning. When approached, she fades into the night, as though the light itself rejects her form. Witnesses often describe the moment as brief but profoundly unsettling, a presence that is acknowledged without being engaged. Even those who pass without seeing her sense a shift in atmosphere, a subtle alteration in the air and the rhythm of their journey. Phantom Crossing Bridge also influences memory. Travelers often recall events differently in daylight. Shadows once seen at the edge of vision are described more vividly. Footsteps that echoed in the night resonate in memory, creating a sense that something lingered just beyond perception. Even long after leaving the area, the feeling of suspended time, faint pressure, and ethereal observation remains, subtle yet persistent. The river below continues its relentless flow, carrying the sound of water over rocks and under planks, a constant counterpoint to the altered perception on the bridge. Night after night, the structure stands quietly, welcoming travelers while holding its secrets. It is not malevolent. It does not chase or threaten. It observes, records, and maintains a presence that is both subtle and unmistakable. Crossing Phantom Crossing Bridge after dark is an experience that blends history, geography, and perception. Shadows stretch unnaturally, figures appear and vanish. Footsteps echo on empty planks. And time itself seems to slow. Travelers leave with stories, sensations, and memories that linger. The bridge remains unchanged. Standing over the dark river, a crossing where the ordinary and the unexplainable converge, and where every journey carries the possibility of encountering something that exists just beyond. Hollow Creek Arch rises silently over the winding creek. Its stone pillars weathered by decades of rain and wind. The arches span the water with a quiet grandeur, the stones darkened by moss and age, yet still holding firm against the current below. During daylight, sunlight filters through gaps in the structure, casting intricate patterns on the creek and the rocky banks, giving the area a serene beauty that contrasts with the stories carried by visitors. Walking along the arch, travelers often sense a presence before seeing anything. Figures dressed in early 20th century clothing appear briefly along the sides, visible for a moment in peripheral vision. Men in worn suits and women in long dresses seem to pause and watch, then vanish when approached. Their movements are deliberate, their posture rigid, yet they leave no trace behind except an uneasy feeling that lingers long after they are gone. Lantern lights flicker in empty rooms that are visible through the structure's arches. Windows framed by stone reveal interiors that seem preserved in time. The glow rises and falls, sometimes steady and at other times as if someone is moving through the space unseen. It is never bright enough to illuminate fully, but the shifting light creates an impression of life, of activity continuing in spaces long abandoned. Visitors report whispers carried on the wind, voices that beg for help or call out faintly, almost pleading. The sounds drift across the arches and along the creek, sometimes seeming close enough to touch, yet impossible to locate. The whispers can rise and fall suddenly, echoing among the stone pillars, blending with the rustle of leaves and the flowing water. The combination of natural sounds and these unexplained voices creates an atmosphere that is both haunting and compelling. The arch itself amplifies sound in strange ways. Footsteps on stone echo differently depending on the direction of the wind. Even the gentle movement of the creek produces resonances that carry far beneath the arches. Observers often pause, listening intently, unsure whether a noise is natural or something else entirely. The interplay of sound and structure heightens awareness, making each movement and each whisper more pronounced. Time seems altered when standing on Hollow Creek Arch. A few minutes can feel extended, and shadows shift subtly, changing shape as one moves. And shadows shift subtly, changing shape as one moves. The figures along the sides may reappear after disappearing, or vanish altogether, leaving only memory and the faint imprint of presence. Leaving only memory and the faint imprint of presence. Visitors describe an odd dualisha, the natural beauty of the creek and arches contrasted with the persistent feeling that the space is occupied by forces beyond ordinary perception. The surrounding area contributes to the impression of the supernatural. Trees lean over the creek, branches swaying and scraping against each other in ways that mimic movement on the stone. Fog rolls in at dusk, softening edges and making the arch appear taller and more imposing. The combination of light, shadow, and mist enhances the visual effect, making the fleeting figures appear more vivid and the lanterns in the empty rooms more alive. Even in daylight, Hollow Creek Arch evokes curiosity and caution. Travelers feel compelled to look closer, to examine the stonework, the windows, and the water below. The shadows of the arches stretch across the creek in patterns that change constantly with the Suna's movement. Small sounds, from dripping water to the snapping of twigs, carry differently than expected, creating a sense that the arch is alive with observation. The arch's history adds. Once a crossing for travelers and local workers. The site has witnessed generations of movement and activity. Stories persist of accidents, sudden disappearances, and unexplained sightings that have occurred over decades, even though the events are rarely documented in detail. The consistency of accounts from visitors over time reinforces the impression that Hollow Creek Arch holds more than stone and mortar. Many who stand on the arch describe a sensation of being watched from multiple directions at once. The figures along the sides, the flickering lanterns, and the whispers from the rooms create a layered experience that is difficult to ignore. Attention sharpens, and ordinary movements are magnified, making each step on stone and each rustle in the leaves significant. As dusk deepens, the effect intensifies. Fog thickens, obscuring the creek and the banks, leaving only the arches visible. Lantern light pulses faintly, shadows shift, and the whispers become more insistent, carried along the wind in soft currents. Figures may appear to move closer or linger longer, yet they remain intangible, existing at the edge of perception. By nightfall, Hollow Creek Arch returns to stillness. The creek flows quietly beneath the stone spans. Trees sway gently, and the lanterns no longer flicker. Shadows fall longer, and the wind carries only the natural sounds of the forest. Yet the memory of the figures, the whispers, and the flickering lights remains vivid for anyone who witnessed them, creating an indelible impression of presence beyond the ordinary. Hollow Creek Arch stands as a place where history, environment, and the unexplained converge. It is both a bridge and a stage, where time, memory, and perception interact. Visitors leave with impressions that linger. Images of figures in period clothing, lanterns in empty rooms, and voices carried on the wind. The arch continues to endure as a location of beauty, mystery, and quiet haunting, inviting exploration while preserving the sense of wonder and unease that defines its character. Red Mist Bridge stretches across a slow-moving river, its wooden planks weathered and darkened by years of exposure. By day, the bridge seems unremarkable, a simple crossing framed by trees and the calm water below. Yet as dusk approaches, the atmosphere shifts. A crimson fog rises from the river, rolling along the surface and curling around the beams and railings of the bridge. The air grows cooler, heavier, and charged with a presence that is difficult to explain. Visitors who arrive at this time often notice the fog first, its red-tinged mist muting the colors of the surrounding landscape. Shadows lengthen, and the Rivera's reflection deepens into dark hues that seem almost alive. The wooden planks beneath the feet of travelers reflect the crimson light. And at moments, faces appear within the surface. They are fleeting, shifting, impossible to focus on for long. Yet their outlines resemble features of the deceased. Eyes and mouths forming and dissolving as if trying to communicate without words. The bridge carries more than visual oddities. Many report sounds that cannot be accounted for. Chains scrape and drag along the deck, echoing across the planks. The noise is intermittent, never constant, sometimes seeming to approach from behind, then receding into the fog. Steps echo differently here, heavy and uneven, as if multiple presences traverse the bridge alongside visitors. The combination of fog, reflection, and sound creates an environment where perception bends, and every moment feels heightened, drawing attention to the smallest detail. Vehicles crossing Red Mist Bridge at dusk often experience unusual phenomena. Brakes may feel sluggish or fail momentarily, steering feels heavier, and engines respond unpredictably. Drivers report a sudden urgency, a sense of tension in the air, and the instinct to move quickly but carefully. Despite mechanical reliability, the bridge seems to impose its own rules on passage, demanding attention and respect from all who traverse it. The red mist itself seems to have a will of its own. It rises and falls, shifting in thickness and intensity with no discernible pattern. Sometimes it curls along the railing, creating a near-solid wall of color. Other times, it drifts across the planks in thin wisps, revealing glimpses of the river below or the opposite bank. The interplay of light, fog, and shadow amplifies the impression that the bridge is alive, responding to the presence of those who walk upon it. Observers often describe an uncanny sense of timing. Sounds and sight seem to react to movement, accelerating or fading as travelers hesitate or advance. Faces in the red reflections linger longest when attention is focused, then blur or vanish entirely when glanced away from. Chains clatter louder when someone stops mid-crossing, and vehicles experience subtle resistance at moments of uncertainty. The bridge seems to measure presence, adjusting the experience accordingly, as if aware of who is crossing and how. Despite the unease, the environment is mesmerizing. The red hue transforms ordinary structures and natural elements into something uncanny yet beautiful. Light dances across the water and planks, merging with the mist to create patterns that shift endlessly, drawing observers to look closer even as instincts urge caution. The history of Red Mist Bridge adds depth to its reputation. The area around the river has long been associated with tragedy and unexplained events. Local stories speak of accidents, sudden deaths, and vanished travelers. Whether these events are linked to the crimson fog or merely reflected in it, the cumulative effect is a heightened awareness of mortality, presence, and the fragility of human movement across a space that seems to exist between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Those who cross the bridge at dusk carry the experience with them. The red mist, the faces in the planks, and the sound of dragging chains linger in memory, as do the subtle mechanical and sensory disturbances. Even after leaving, the river and the fog remain vivid in imagination. And recollection of the crossing often evokes the same tension and fascination felt in the moment. Red Mist Bridge is not threatening in a direct sense. There is no force that attacks or injures. Yet the bridge demands attention and respect. It is an environment that engages sight, sound, and instinct, heightening awareness and drawing focus to movement, presence, and perception. Each crossing becomes a deliberate act. An encounter with a space that preserves history, memory, and something beyond ordinary experience. Ultimately, Red Mist Bridge exists as a crossing between worlds. A place where the physical structure and the river interact with the red fog to create an atmosphere unlike any other. Faces form and dissolve, chains scrape across planks, and vehicles respond unpredictably. Every element combines to create an immersive experience, one that is memorable, mysterious, and deeply engaging. Travelers who pass through are left with the understanding that some spaces carry their own awareness, shaping every step and leaving impressions that endure long after the crossing is complete. The landscape stretches endlessly, a tapestry of hills, valleys, rivers, and forests shaped over centuries by forces far older than human hands. Rivers carve the land, winding slowly through rocks and soil, their waters carrying sediment, life, and memory downstream. Forests expand with dense foliage, every tree a witness to countless seasons, their leaves whispering with the wind, rustling like a soft chorus in the still air. Each step into this world awakens awareness, a sense that the land is alive, observing, and patient. Paths meander naturally, following contours etched by water and erosion rather than human design. Fallen branches, roots, and stones create subtle obstacles that demand attention and mindfulness. Streams cross trails quietly, reflecting the sky and surrounding trees, while providing a constant, soothing soundtrack that accompanies travelers through shaded corridors. Each footstep resonates in rhythm with the land, an unspoken dialogue between observer and environment that sharpens perception and heightens presence. Flora and fauna interweave in intricate patterns. Trees bend and sway with the wind, their branches creaking softly, while wildflowers emerge in bursts of fleeting color among ferns and moss. Birds move swiftly through branches, calling intermittently, leaving only echoes that fade into silence. Insects hum quietly near blossoms and fallen leaves, and small mammals leave tracks in soft soil, hints of activity that vanish under the next breeze. Every element contributes to a living, breathing ecosystem, a network of interdependent life that responds subtly to observation. Water shapes the land and the experience of moving through it. Streams ripple over rocks. Pools mirror the sky. And waterfalls tumble with rhythmic consistency, each motion reinforcing the persistence of natural forces. Moisture clings to leaves and stone, nourishing roots, and maintaining the balance that sustains the surrounding ecosystem. The sound of flowing water provides continuity, a constant reminder of both motion and stillness, reinforcing the awareness that the environment is active and enduring. Light transforms the perception of the landscape. Sunlight filters through canopy gaps, casting dynamic patterns on the forest floor. Shadows stretch and contract as the day progresses, altering familiar paths and creating ephemeral illusions. Morning mist softens edges, blurring the line between solid and air, while dusk elongates silhouettes, emphasizing scale and perspective. Every shift in illumination demands careful attention, training the eye and mind to notice subtle changes that might otherwise go unseen. Silence enhances the sense of immersion. In still moments, the absence of sound amplifies awareness. Breaths, footsteps, and rustling leaves become prominent, revealing the rhythm of life that exists beyond immediate observation. Silence encourages reflection, attuning travelers to patterns of movement, energy, and presence. The forest communicates in this quiet, shaping perception without words, offering subtle cues that guide the observer deeper into connection with the environment. Time behaves differently within this landscape. Minutes can stretch into hours when attention is focused. And hours can compress when the mind absorbs the continuous flow of sensory input. Shadows shift imperceptibly. Sound travels differently depending on terrain. And the perception of distance becomes fluid. Observers learn to pace themselves, moving deliberately and integrating sight, sound, and touch into a cohesive awareness of place and moment. Evening brings further transformation. Darkness softens contours, blending forms into a tapestry of shadow and light. Nocturnal sounds emerge: rustling leaves, distant calls, and the soft movement of creaturesa while the wind whispers through trees with a subtle rhythm. Moonlight filters through branches, illuminating paths with a soft glow that guides movement and deepens the sense of intimacy with the forest. Each step becomes a conscious act, every motion deliberate, and awareness of surroundings is heightened. Night magnifies the interplay of perception and environment. Shadows shift, shapes merge, and distant sounds carry more weight. The forest feels both expansive and close, its presence enveloping the observer. Small details, a rock out of place, a faint echo, the motion of leaves become vital indicators of orientation and context. The interplay of light, darkness, sound, and scent creates a fully immersive experience, demanding engagement and patience from all who traverse it. Memory retains the impressions of this journey long after departure. Visual patterns, sounds, textures, and rhythms linger, integrating with reflection and understanding. Travelers carry fragments of the landscape within, a subtle record of observation, awareness, and interaction. The environment leaves an imprint not through force but through invitation, shaping perception and offering lessons in patience, attentiveness, and humility. The land endures, timeless and constant. Mountains, rivers, forests, and valleys persist across centuries. Shaped by forces beyond human control. Human presence is fleeting, yet meaningful when accompanied by respect and careful observation. Each journey becomes a dialogue between the individual and the environment. An opportunity to witness the ongoing dance of life, earth, and time. The landscape remains patient, complex, and immersive. A living testament to endurance, subtlety, and the profound beauty of the natural world. Widowmaker Bridge arches over a restless river, its steel frame and weathered planks bearing the weight of decades of history. Fog often drifts along the water below, curling upward to mingle with the bridge's shadows. The guardrails are rusted and uneven, worn by time and neglect. From a distance, the bridge appears ordinary, yet those who approach feel an unmistakable tension in the air, a heaviness that seems to press against the chest and slow the breath. History records multiple fatal accidents along this span. And the stories have become part of its presence. Visitors report that the atmosphere changes with every crossing. The wind carries more than leaves and river mist. Sounds echo oddly, footsteps taking on a delayed rhythm. Faint whispers rising and falling like echoes of events long past. The air seems thick, as though saturated with memory. Each plank and beam retaining fragments of what has occurred here. Those who walk across alone often describe a sudden shift in perception. A subtle pressure appears from behind, gentle yet insistent, as if an unseen force urges them backward. The sensation is fleeting but unmistakable, enough to quicken the heart and tighten muscles. Some feel it in multiple spots along the bridge, moving with them as they advance, reinforcing the sense that the bridge is aware, observing each crossing with quiet attention. Shadows move strangely along the guardrails. At times, shapes appear to leap or stretch in ways that defy logic. Detaching briefly from the structure only to vanish when observed directly. They are not aggressive, yet their presence is undeniable. Creating a sense that the boundaries between solid objects and darkness are less fixed here. Travelers describe moments when a shadow seems to follow, pause, and then disappear. Leaving an echo of movement that lingers long after the eyes perceive nothing. The river below adds another layer to the atmosphere. Its currents twist and churn in low light, reflecting moonlight or headlights. Occasionally, the faint sound of sobbing drifts along the water. The sound is subtle, almost imperceptible until noticed. And it leaves a mark on memory, a quiet ache that persists even after leaving the bridge. Even during the day, Widowmaker Bridge exerts a presence. Sunlight illuminates rusted bolts, weathered planks, and the uneven lines of the guardrails. Yet shadows still gather in corners and beneath supports. A simple walk across is enough to stir awareness, the mind tuned to subtle movements and changes in light. Footsteps on the wooden boards echo differently than expected, carrying a sense of space that is both familiar and distorted. The bridge's design and age contribute to the sensations felt here. Each plank creaks in response to weight, yet sometimes groans without cause. Metal joints shiver faintly in the wind, creating a resonance that vibrates subtly along the frame. Observers often report feeling more sensitive to every sound, every gust of wind, and every change in light. The environment itself seems to heighten perception, amplifying the presence of both past and unseen entities. Many visitors describe moments of hesitation while crossing. Time feels slower, steps longer, movements heavier. There is an acute awareness of the river beneath and the drop to either side. Even small accidents turning ahead, shifting a fuda carry amplified significance. The bridge seems to respond, subtle shifts in air or vibration echoing in ways that suggest consciousness without form. The fog thickens at night, wrapping the bridge in a soft, gray veil. Shadows deepen, blending with the outlines of the guardrails and supports. Shapes at the edges of vision move just enough to be noticed but dissolve when directly confronted. The sobbing along the river becomes more distinct, forming a rhythm that pulses with the night, blending with the whisper of wind through the steel and wood. It is impossible to tell whether the sounds and movements are products of memory, suggestion, or something inherent to the bridge itself. Crossing Widowmaker Bridge is not a simple passage. Each visitor leaves changed, carrying with them impressions of weight, movement, sound, and shadow. The sensation of being observed, of pressure and resistance, lingers. The echoes of footsteps and distant sobbing imprint themselves in memory. Even after leaving the bridge, awareness remains heightened, a quiet reminder of the experience and the bridge's enduring presence. Widowmaker Bridge stands as it has for decades, a crossing over restless waters, bearing history, memory, and the subtle touch of the unknown. Its planks, guardrails, and shadows hold stories that remain, waiting for those who approach. To sense the weight of time and the presence of forces that defy explanation. To walk across is to enter a space that exists beyond ordinary perception, where memory, energy, and mystery converge, leaving a lasting impression on all who traverse its narrow span. Ghost River Bridge spans a dark, narrow section of river, long abandoned yet still visible from the main road. Its weathered planks and rusted railings stand as a silent reminder of its past, a structure once used to carry travelers across swift waters. Daylight reveals a bridge slowly succumbing to time, wood splintering and metal corroding, but night transforms it into something entirely different. Shadows stretch across the river, and the air grows heavy with the sensation of lingering presence. Visitors driving past at night often catch glimpses of silhouettes pacing along the railings. These figures appear human, yet faint and indistinct, as if formed from mist or shadow. They move deliberately, stepping softly along the bridge, sometimes stopping to gaze outward, sometimes turning as though watching the approaching vehicle. When headlights fall directly upon them, the shapes vanish, leaving only the empty bridge and the sound of the wind moving across the planks. Chains hanging from old railings rattle in the air even on nights when no wind stirs. The sound is sudden and distinct, echoing across the river and blending with the soft rush of water below. Visitors pause instinctively, straining to find the source. Some have reported multiple chains rattling in sequence, a rhythm that rises and falls as if somania or somthinga is moving along the structure in silence. The effect is unnerving, creating the impression that the bridge itself is alive with unseen motion. Whispers carry across the bridge as well, faint and nearly imperceptible, yet unmistakable to those who listen. Visitors describe hearing their own names called softly, sometimes repeated, sometimes trailing off into silence. The sensation creates an awareness that the bridge is observing, acknowledging, and interacting with each traveler who crosses or passes nearby. The surrounding landscape amplifies these experiences, blocking moonlight and creating long corridors of shadow. The water below reflects dim light, rippling with patterns that seem to shift unnaturally. Even in the absence of wind or weather, the bridge carries an energy that is palpable, a quiet hum that travelers sense without sound. Every step, every glance, and every passing car interacts subtly with this presence. Those who explore the bridge on foot report additional phenomena. Footsteps echo in places where the boards creak under no weight. Shadows shift along the railings and along the deck, creating the impression of multiple figures moving in coordination. Objects long abandoned, such as remnants of ropes and signage, sometimes appear slightly displaced, as if influenced by unseen hands. The effect is never violent, but the cumulative impact of sound, movement, and perception creates an atmosphere that is impossible to ignore. History contributes to the bridge's reputation. Built decades ago, Ghost River Bridge once served as a vital crossing for local communities. Over time, the structure fell into disuse as newer roads bypassed the river, leaving it to weather storms, flooding, and neglect. Tales of workers and travelers who disappeared or met untimely deaths on or near the bridge emerged, woven into local folklore. Today, these stories merge with modern accounts of shadows, rattling chains, and whispers, creating a continuous narrative that spans generations. The bridge's architecture enhances the effect. Narrow planks and rusted railings create tight corridors, where shadows and reflections appear elongated. The river below amplifies sound, making small noises seem louder and more deliberate. Even a gentle breeze carries distant echoes across the water, blending natural and inexplicable phenomena into a seamless experience. Travelers become acutely aware of every creak, ripple, and distant murmur, as if the bridge monitors their attention. Time on Ghost River Bridge seems altered at night. Many visitors describe moments stretching longer than expected. Headlights and taillights appear to linger in place longer than physics allows. Sounds of water and movement are slightly delayed. This distortion of perception enhances the impression that the bridge exists partially outside ordinary experience. A threshold where the living and unseen converge. Those who leave the bridge often carry memories of silhouettes pacing along railings, chains rattling in calm air, and whispers calling names remain vivid. Even during daylight, travelers report heightened awareness when passing nearby, expecting to see movement or hear sounds that do not materialize. Ghost River Bridge stands as a monument to history, memory, and perception. It is not a hostile place, nor does it seek to harm, but it demands attention and respect. Shadows move along planks, chains rattle without wind, and voices call softly across the water. The river flows beneath, steady and unchanging, while the bridge carries the echoes of past and present, blending into a single experience for those who traverse it. At night, the bridge is alive with subtle presence. Silhouettes pace along the railing, footsteps echo without weight, and whispers call across the dark water. Chains rattle softly, punctuating the stillness. Travelers cross with a heightened sense of awareness, leaving with impressions that linger long after the journey ends. Ghost River Bridge exists as a place where history, observation, and memory converge. A crossing suspended between the natural world and the unexplained. Screaming Pines Bridge stretches across a deep ravine, surrounded by dense forest. The trees stand tall and close, their thick canopies filtering sunlight and creating long shadows across the deck. The air is heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, and even in daylight the bridge feels isolated, removed from the world beyond the forest. Visitors often notice the first signs of the unusual as soon as they step onto the wooden deck. Footsteps echo sharply, bouncing off the stone walls and through the surrounding trees. At first, it seems normal, the sound carrying farther than expected. But often, the echoes continue after the original step, overlapping and layering in ways that feel unnatural. Those walking alone pause instinctively, their attention drawn to the absence of anyone else on the bridge. The forest contributes to the effect in more than just acoustics. Rustling leaves can sound like movement on the railing or across the deck. Small animals make noises in the underbrush. Yet some travelers report hearing the screams of creatures that are not present. The sounds are sudden, sharp, and convincing, as if calling out from just beyond the trees. The mind searches for origin points, only to find emptiness. Figures have been seen perched atop the guardrails. Their posture is still and deliberate, observing silently. Shadows among the pines make them difficult to discern at first, but once noticed, they remain visible long enough to create a lasting impression. When approached, They vanish without a trace, leaving only the echo of presence and an unsettling awareness that they were there. The bridge itself seems to respond to movement. Each step produces resonance, each shift of weight carried through the deck and into the surrounding forest. Though nothing is visible, night intensifies these experiences. The forest becomes darker, shadows blending with the deck and railing. Moonlight filtering through the pines creates elongated shapes that shift with every breeze. Figures atop guardrails appear more distinct, silhouetted against faint light. Travelers describe a heightened awareness of their surroundings, each noise and motion feeling amplified, each shadow suspect. Some witnesses report feeling followed. The sense is subtle, a pressure or awareness that moves with them across the span of the bridge. Even when no figure is visible, the environment feels attentive, as if the forest and bridge together are aware of every motion. Sounds echo with precision, carrying in unpredictable directions and making it difficult to determine what is real and what is illusion. Animals behave unusually in the area. Birds often remain silent even during daylight. And small mammals avoid certain sections of the forest entirely. The absence of wildlife heightens the impression of isolation, reinforcing the sense that something about the bridge and its surroundings affects the natural world as well as human perception. Visitors often speak of a strange rhythm to the experience. Footsteps echoing, distant screams, and shadowed forms appear to follow a pattern that is difficult to interpret. Even after leaving the bridge, the sounds and sensations remain vivid, replaying in memory with startling clarity. Some describe the feeling of crossing the bridge as entering a separate dimension, a place where time and sound are altered and the normal rules of perception do not apply. The combination of structural acoustics, dense forest, and atmospheric conditions creates a unique environment. Wind and fog move unpredictably, filtering and distorting sound. Moonlight and artificial lighting from distant roads reflect off surfaces in unexpected ways. Shadows stretch and shift, creating the appearance of movement where none exists. Together, these elements create an immersive experience that is both beautiful and unsettling. Even in daytime, the bridge holds a quiet tension. Travelers report feeling observed from the surrounding trees or guardrails. The dense forest muffles distant sounds, leaving the bridge and nearby paths isolated. Each creak of wood and rustle of leaves is amplified, creating a heightened sense of awareness and anticipation. As night falls completely, the combination of fog, moonlight, and echoes intensifies. The figures on guardrails are seen more clearly, though always fleeting. Whispers ride the wind, carrying faint calls and echoes that seem impossible to originate from any visible source. Footsteps continue to overlap and echo in ways that defy explanation. Screaming Pines Bridge remains a place where environment and perception converge. It offers visitors a mixture of awe and unease, an experience defined by sound, shadow, and presence. Even when empty, the bridge feels alive, its deck and surrounding forest creating a continuous interplay of light, movement, and echo. Travelers leave with impressions that endure: the faint screams, the fleeting figures, and the resonant footsteps long after they have crossed and returned to safety. The bridge stands as a testament to the power of place. It is a structure that interacts with the forest and the senses, blending natural beauty with subtle unease. Those who walk across it experience not just a passage over a ravine, but an encounter with an environment that seems alive, attentive and quietly observant, leaving a lasting impression of mystery that endures far beyond the deck and guardrails. Iron Hollow Bridge spans a narrow, shadowed river, its iron trusses rising like skeletal ribs against the sky. By day, the bridge is a striking industrial structure, rusting in places yet standing firm, a testament to the labor and engineering of decades past. The water below flows steadily, reflecting sunlight and the dark outlines of girders above. Yet beneath its solid exterior, the bridge holds a weight that is impossible to ignore, a lingering presence shaped by history and the tragedies that occurred here. Visitors crossing during daylight may notice the rusted metal and creaking joints. Wind whistles through gaps in the trusses, carrying sound in strange ways. The bridge feels alive, not in motion, but in awareness. Those who pause on the planks often report a chill, a sensation of eyes upon them, as if the structure itself is observing each step. Even in clear weather, the atmosphere is heavy, layered with memory and the echoes of lives lost. Figures sometimes appear within the frames of the iron trusses. At first, they are subtle, outlines blending with shadows and rust. They resemble former residents, people who once traversed the area or who were drawn here by circumstance. Movement is slow and deliberate, as if they are caught in the space between worlds, performing gestures that suggest unfinished business. Observers often hesitate, unsure whether to approach or retreat, sensing the presence without direct threat. As night falls, the bridge transforms. Darkness deepens shadows between the beams and over the water. Metallic sounds echo across the span, sharp and rhythmic, like chains being dragged along the deck. The noise resonates through the air and the iron itself, creating vibrations that can be felt in the feet and chest. Footsteps, creaks, and subtle thuds seem to follow visitors, synchronized with movement yet impossible to trace. The effect is immersive, drawing attention to every detail and heightening perception. Some visitors report sensations of touch. A brushing hand along the shoulder, a cold press against the back, fleeting yet unmistakable. The feeling is brief and leaves no mark, but it reinforces the sense that the bridge is not empty, that it carries the memory of those who once occupied it. Every step becomes deliberate, cautious, as travelers negotiate both the physical structure and the unseen presence within it. The river below adds to the intensity. Its dark surface reflects beams and shadows, often showing images that appear to move independently of the actual trusses. Ripples catch and distort light, creating brief impressions of shapes that vanish when focused upon. The interaction between water, iron, and shadow amplifies the feeling that the environment is alive, responsive, and imbued with memory. Crossing Iron Hollow Bridge is not merely a physical act. The structure exerts a psychological presence, shaping awareness and altering perception. Visitors report heightened sensitivity to sound, light, and movement. Every creak of wood or iron, every gust of wind, every shadowed corner contributes to a continuous awareness of history pressing into the present. The bridge seems to maintain a rhythm, a cadence that guides those who move across it and reminds them of the weight it carries. Accounts of past tragedies contribute to the bridge's reputation. Multiple suicides have been recorded here over the decades, and the energy of those events is said to linger. Observers notice that figures often occupy positions that align with previous occurrences, as if history is inscribed into the trusses themselves. Movement within the frames, shadows along the deck, and sounds that mimic past activity create an environment in which memory is tangible. The iron structure itself shapes perception. Rusted beams, bolts, and crossbars create pockets of shadow and reflection. Light from lamps or moon casts shifting patterns, revealing forms that appear almost human. Even in the absence of direct figures, the play of shadow and color creates the impression of presence. Observers find themselves attentive, drawn to the slightest movement or sound, aware of the bridge as a participant in the experience rather than a passive backdrop. Leaving the bridge does not immediately dissolve the sensations. The memory of metallic echoes, fleeting touches, and shadowed figures follows visitors. Reflections in mirrors or the Minda's eye often replay the impressions, a reminder of the bridge's ongoing influence. Iron Hollow Bridge is a space where past and present converge, where memory persists in physical and perceptual forms, and where each crossing is both a journey and an encounter with the unseen. Ultimately, Iron Hollow Bridge is more than a span over water. It is a repository of experience, a structure that carries history, presence, and attention in equal measure. Figures in rusted frames, metallic echoes, and subtle touches create a layered, immersive environment. The bridge engages every sense, demanding observation and respect. Travelers leave with a lasting awareness that some places are not merely crossed, but experienced, remembered, and felt long after the final step has been taken. Misty hollow-covered bridge rises quietly above a slow, winding creek. Its timbers weathered by decades of rain, wind, and winter frost. Fog settles thickly most nights, wrapping the bridge and surrounding forest in a cloak of white. The air is damp and heavy, carrying the scent of wet wood and moss. While every step on the planks echoes in hollow resonance, amplifying the isolation of the crossing. By day, the bridge seems ordinary, a relic of simpler times. At night, it takes on a presence of its own, alive with shadows and sound. The first sensation visitors notice is the fog itself. It moves and shifts with subtle currents, curling around beams and railings, seeping through cracks, and making familiar shapes unfamiliar. Leaving travelers aware of every movement, every breath, and every sound in the enclosed space. The mist softens edges, transforms ordinary beams into looming forms, and creates a sense that the bridge is far larger and more intricate than it actually is. Voices sometimes echo from within, faint and fragmented. They resemble cries for help carried by the damp air, rising and falling in pitch and intensity. Some say the sounds are close enough to suggest presence within the bridge, yet careful observation reveals no source. The cries seem to respond to movement, appearing when footsteps approach a particular plank and fading when the listener turns their attention elsewhere. The effect is both disorienting and compelling, drawing curiosity while amplifying unease. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed along the edges of the bridge. They remain peripheral, seen only out of the corner of the eye, moving slowly and deliberately. Approaching these forms reveals nothing, as if they dissolve into the fog itself, leaving no footprints, no disturbance, only the lingering impression that they were ever present. The figures appear without warning, vanish without trace, and return sporadically, creating an unpredictable rhythm that heightens awareness and tension. Windows along the sides of the bridge occasionally reveal faint glows. The glow pulses subtly, sometimes brightening when attention is focused and dimming when looked at directly. These moments are fleeting, brief enough to provoke doubt yet vivid enough to leave a lasting impression. The effect is intensified by the fog, which absorbs ambient light and accentuates even the smallest illumination. The bridge itself seems to respond to presence. Planks creak beneath weight, swinging slightly with each step, creating the impression of subtle movement. Wind passing through the structure carries low tones, resonating like whispered warnings. The combination of sound, fog, and shadow transforms a simple crossing into a multisensory experience, where perception and reality intertwine and observation requires heightened attention. Visitors often describe a gradual shift in awareness while on the bridge. Time feels distorted, with minutes stretching longer than expected. Sounds echo and distort unpredictably, footsteps and cries overlapping in ways that confuse orientation. The mist refracts light, casting faint, shifting shadows that merge and separate. Every motion becomes deliberate, every step measured, as the bridge itself commands respect and presence. Night accentuates every element. Distant sounds of water trickling beneath the bridge are amplified in hollow resonance. Rustling leaves along the banks contribute to the sense of movement beyond perception. The environment itself feels alive, responding to attention and action in subtle ways that draw the observer deeper into engagement with the space. Memory of the crossing lingers long after departure. The cries, the fleeting figures, the glows in the windows, and the creaking planks form a vivid sequence of impressions that are recalled with clarity and unease. Travelers note a heightened sensitivity even after leaving, noticing shadows in familiar spaces, sounds in quiet moments, and the weight of unseen observation that seems to follow them briefly beyond the bridge. The bridge stands as a structure of both history and mystery, a conduit between worlds that are tangible and elusive. Its timbered walls hold the imprint of countless passages, weathered and enduring. While fog and night infuse it with a sense of life and narrative that goes beyond architecture. Crossing it requires attention, patience, and an openness to subtle, inexplicable experiences that defy full understanding. Misty Hollow Covered Bridge is both place and presence. A space where the ordinary and the extraordinary converge. It shapes perception, heightens awareness, and leaves an enduring impression on those who traverse it. Even in daylight, the bridge retains a quiet tension. A memory of fog, shadows, and glows that transforms a simple crossing into an encounter with atmosphere, history, and the mysterious persistence of the unknown. It waits patiently, offering passage, observation, and the possibility of experiences that remain long after the final step has been taken. Cursed Pine Suspension Bridge hangs precariously over a deep ravine, its wooden planks weathered and worn by years of storms and neglect. The cables creak and sway with the slightest movement, groaning under weight and wind. Mist drifts along the cliffs and river below, curling around the bridge in patterns that seem deliberate, as if the fog itself is watching. Travelers approaching the bridge immediately sense a difference in the air. The temperature drops slightly, carrying a damp chill that clings to skin and clothing. The forest surrounding the ravine falls silent, leaves rustling only occasionally. And the usual calls of birds are absent. Even before stepping onto the bridge, there is a subtle tension, a feeling that this is not a crossing like any other, but a place steeped in unseen presence and lingering memory. Once on the bridge, every step becomes deliberate. The suspension sways with subtle movements, sometimes without visible cause. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the boards and railings, creating an unease that grows as travelers progress. In these moments, the bridge feels alive, responding to presence and motion, observing without form or face. Figures have been reported appearing along the span, suspended from ropes that are never there. Approaching them causes them to vanish instantly, leaving only the sense that they were ever present, that the mind has seen what the eyes could not fully comprehend. The effect is disorienting, creating a mixture of fear and awe as travelers realize the boundaries between reality and perception are fragile here. Footsteps follow each person across the bridge, echoing softly beneath boards and cables. They are measured, deliberate, and vanish as soon as attention focuses directly on them. The rhythm is never threatening but persistent, like a heartbeat out of sync with its own, a reminder that crossing is not solitary. Some describe a sensation of being accompanied, guided, or even tested by something unseen, an invisible observer pacing alongside with patience and intent. The fog intensifies these experiences. It swirls around posts and cables in patterns that defy natural movement, rising and falling as if in response to motion or thought. Visibility is reduced to only a few steps ahead. Shadows blending with mist to create shifting forms. The environment itself seems active, alive, responding to human presence with subtle, ungraspable energy. Sound behaves unusually on Cursed Pine Suspension. Wind whistles through cables, producing tones that resonate along the span. Water far below echoes in soft, distorted patterns, carrying murmurs that are difficult to place. The creaking of boards, the subtle swaying of posts, and distant, indistinct noises combine to produce a soundscape that is both immersive and disorienting. Travelers often report heightened awareness, every step and breath amplified by the presence of the bridge and its unseen occupants. Crossing takes on a surreal quality. Time feels slowed, moments stretching longer than expected. Senses heightened and acutely aware. Shadows seem to linger longer, footsteps echo more distinctly. Figures appear just beyond peripheral vision. Anxiety grows not from danger alone but from the impossibility of fully understanding the space. Even when progress is steady, the span feels longer than its physical dimensions. As if distance is influenced by the bridge itself. The physical structure of the bridge contributes to its tension. Rusted cables, worn planks, and weathered posts all carry history and memory. Each step is amplified by subtle vibrations, each movement echoes beyond expectation, and every creak or sway adds to the immersive experience. The combination of architecture and environment creates a corridor suspended in space, where perception and reality merge, and the ordinary rules of sight, sound, and gravity feel less certain. Despite the unease, the bridge is undeniably compelling. The fog, river below, and forested cliffs create a scene of stark beauty. Mist reflects ambient light, casting fleeting shapes across the surface of the bridge. Shadows stretch and bend with the fog, producing images that are simultaneously terrifying and mesmerizing. Each crossing is unique, shaped by weather, time of day, and presence, leaving every traveler with a distinct impression of the Bridge's character. Even after leaving, the experience persists. Travelers recall footsteps, figures, and the subtle pressure of unseen attention. Dreams are filled with the swaying planks, the curling fog, and the pale shapes suspended in air. The sensation of being followed or observed continues in memory, a reminder that cursed pine's suspension is more than a physical structure. It is a place where history, energy, and perception converge. Cursed pine's suspension endures as it has for decades, perched above the ravine, enveloped in mist, and carrying stories of those who dared to cross. Its boards, cables, and shadows preserve memory and presence, offering passage while asserting the weight of its history. To step onto the bridge is to enter a space where ordinary perception is altered, where time stretches, and where the unseen leaves its mark on all who traverse the rickety span. Every crossing is an encounter with something beyond the visible, a fleeting touch of mystery that lingers long after the final step. Blackwater Crossing spans a narrow, winding river, its wooden planks weathered and darkened by decades of rain, wind, and time. The bridge cuts through a dense forest, where tall trees rise on either side, their branches interlocking overhead to block moonlight and cast deep shadows across the water below. By day, it appears unremarkable, a quiet crossing for travelers and locals. By night, however, the atmosphere transforms. Darkness presses close, and every sound and movement feels intensified, as if the forest itself is aware of those who pass. The river beneath the bridge seems alive after sunset. Visitors often report seeing glowing shapes beneath the surface, shifting slowly with the current. The lights are pale and ethereal, flickering as though responding to unseen motion. At first, they appear like reflections or bioluminescence, but their movement is deliberate, darting and weaving in ways the water alone cannot account for. Those who pause to watch describe a sensation of being observed from below, an awareness that follows their gaze across the dark, rippling surface. Shadows leap suddenly onto the bridge itself. Travelers recount moments when elongated shapes spring from the surrounding darkness, crossing the planks in a blur before vanishing entirely. There is no sound, no creak of wood or rustle of clothing, yet the effect is unmistakable. The movement is quick and deliberate, giving the impression of figures that exist partially outside normal perception. Even when the bridge appears empty, visitors feel the echo of their presence lingering in the air. Car headlights often reveal the most startling phenomena. Drivers crossing the bridge at night sometimes illuminate ghostly figures walking alongside them. Pale and indistinct, with features blurred by shadow. The figures do not speak or approach, yet their presence is undeniable. They move slowly, step for step with the vehicle, appearing briefly before vanishing into the trees or fading along the riverbank. Even when the lights sweep the area repeatedly, nothing remains where the figures once stood, leaving only an imprint in memory and a faint chill in the air. The surrounding forest amplifies the effect. Trees sway gently in the wind, casting twisting patterns across the bridge. The river moves steadily beneath, carrying a constant hum of rushing water. Sounds travel differently here, echoing across planks and under arches, creating the impression that movement is occurring in multiple places at once. Travelers note that ordinary environmental noises take on an uncanny resonance, blending with the glimpses of light and shadow to create a continuous sense of awareness. Footsteps echo on the bridge even when no one is present. Visitors describe hearing a sequence of soft, deliberate steps that match the pace of their own crossing. These sounds are precise and measured, giving the impression of a presence that observes without engaging, walking alongside without revealing itself. Glowing shapes in the water often appear in clusters, drifting together before separating again. They move with a fluid grace, almost intelligent in their patterns. Observers report a sense of anticipation, a subtle pull in the chest, as though the lights are aware of attention. The river itself seems to amplify the phenomena, reflecting and refracting ambient light to create moments of clarity where the glowing forms appear almost solid, then dissolve again into ripples and darkness. Time on Blackwater Crossing seems altered. Many visitors report that their journey across the bridge feels longer than expected. As if motion slows and senses heighten. The combination of dim light, shifting shadows, and glowing water creates a sense of suspended perception. Headlights linger on shapes that appear and vanish, the rushing of the river seems to stretch, and even the echo of footsteps is delayed, creating an impression of slowed, measured reality. Those who linger near the bridge after crossing often feel a residual awareness. Shadows continue to seem present at the periphery of vision. Glowing shapes echo in memory. And the sensation of being watched remains for some time. Even in daylight, the crossing retains a subtle pull. A quiet reminder that the night holds experiences that ordinary eyes cannot fully capture. Blackwater Crossing combines isolation, natural beauty, and subtle mystery into a place that captivates and unsettles. Its wooden planks, rushing water, and dense forest create the perfect setting for phenomena that blend perception with memory. Visitors experience glimpses of movement and light, sounds with no source, and a persistent awareness of presence that cannot be explained easily. The bridge stands quietly over the river, unaffected by the decades that pass around it. Shadows leap, glowing shapes drift, footsteps echo. And figures appear along the planks and riverbanks. Blackwater Crossing does not harm or pursue. But it observes, records, and leaves a lingering impression on those who traverse it. Travelers leave with stories and sensations. A quiet knowledge that some places exist partially beyond the ordinary. Where the natural and the unexplainable converge in subtle, compelling ways. At night, Blackwater Crossing is alive with movement and memory. Glowing shapes ripple beneath the water, shadows leap and vanish on the planks. And ghostly figures walk alongside headlights. Footsteps echo without source. And the air carries a weight that heightens every perception. The bridge spans the river as it always has. Holding the intersection of reality and unseen presence. A place where light, shadow, and water combine to create an experience that is unforgettable, mysterious, and quietly alive. Blackwater Crossing spans a narrow river flanked by dense, dark forests, the trees leaning toward the water as if listening to its flow. The bridge itself is unassuming, constructed of weathered steel and wood, yet it carries a reputation that stretches far beyond its modest structure. Travelers approach cautiously, noticing how the forest swallows sound and light, leaving the crossing cloaked in shadow even on clear nights. Visitors often first notice the water below. Glowing shapes appear just beneath the surface, fleeting and elusive. They shift with the current, sometimes forming vague outlines, other times moving with sudden, unexplainable speed. Observers describe the light as soft but persistent, flickering like lanterns under the Rivera's surface, drawing attention to places where nothing should be visible. Shadows seem to leap onto the bridge itself. The shadows appear suddenly, solid enough to suggest weight. Yet vanish without sound or trace when approached. Walkers report feeling a presence brushing past, a chill along the neck or shoulder, though nothing is physically there. The effect is brief but memorable, leaving an unease that grows as they continue across the span. Drivers crossing at night often experience the most intense phenomena. Headlights sometimes illuminate figures walking alongside their vehicles. Shapes indistinct yet undeniably human. These figures do not respond to honking, flashing lights, or movement. They remain just outside the beam, disappearing when the car moves closer, leaving only the sense that they were watching, following, and observing. The surrounding forest amplifies every movement. Leaves rustle without wind, branches snap under invisible weight. And the water below carries sound in unpredictable ways. Even the creaking of the bridge becomes distorted, echoing in patterns that confuse the mind and make perception unreliable. Small noises are magnified, creating the impression that the crossing is alive with unseen activity. Pedestrians often pause midway to look over the railing. The water appears deeper and darker than expected, shadows stretching from the trees into the river, as if merging with its current. Some report brief glimpses of faces or forms within the glowing shapes. Features shifting and dissolving in the dim light. It is never threatening, yet it evokes a sense of something ancient and aware lurking just beneath the surface. The experience is not limited to individuals traveling alone. Groups of friends or families often recount similar sensations. Footsteps echo where no one is present. Shadows appear in peripheral vision. Glowing forms reappear in similar patterns, regardless of who is observing. The consistency of these reports suggests that the crossing has an effect on perception that is difficult to explain. The bridge itself adds to the eerie atmosphere. Weathered boards creak under weight, and steel beams reflect light in ways that create long, shifting shadows. In this mist, forms can appear to move independently, shadows merging with the natural movement of the water and trees. Time seems to behave differently at Blackwater Crossing. Moments stretch, seconds feel longer, and the mind becomes intensely focused on small details. Movement of light, ripple of water, and shifting shadows dominate awareness. Travelers often report leaving with a heightened sense of attention, recalling subtle events that might otherwise be ignored under normal conditions. The river below and the forest beyond contribute to a layered perception of the crossing. Glowing shapes, moving shadows, and reflected light interact with the natural environment, creating an immersive experience. Every step, turn, and glance becomes meaningful, and the line between the tangible and the imagined blurs. Even during daytime, the bridge holds an unusual presence. Sunlight creates contrast along the beams and water, revealing patterns and shadows that change with every breeze. While less intense than nighttime experiences, the subtle effects remain, making visitors aware that the environment is constantly in flux, never quite static. By nightfall, the phenomena become more pronounced. Darkness softens edges, amplifies sound, and allows glowing shapes to stand out against the black water. Shadows appear and vanish across the deck, and whispers carried by the wind reach observers unexpectedly. The forest seems to lean inward, enclosing the bridge, creating a space both isolated and alive. Those who cross Blackwater Bridge often leave with lasting impressions. Glowing shapes in the river, shadowy forms on the deck, and figures illuminated by headlights. The experience blends natural beauty, architectural simplicity, and subtle mystery into a single encounter that feels timeless. Blackwater Crossing stands as a place where perception, environment, and mystery converge. The bridge, the river, and the surrounding forest work together to create an atmosphere that is both captivating and unnerving, leaving visitors with a sense that even in solitude, they are not entirely alone. Crimson Fog Overpass stretches across a quiet highway, its concrete beams rising above the surrounding landscape with a stark, imposing presence. During the day, it appears ordinary, a simple structure for travel and passage. Yet as dusk approaches, the atmosphere shifts. A fog begins to roll in from nearby lowlands, thick and crimson-tinted, obscuring light and blurring familiar shapes. The color of the fog seems unnatural, and the air carries a weight that is immediately perceptible to anyone approaching. Visitors crossing the overpass at night often notice the fog first. It moves along the roadway and around support pillars, curling in on itself and forming dense patches that reduce visibility to a few steps ahead. The red hue casts eerie reflections on surfaces, turning ordinary concrete and metal into shapes that seem almost alive. Shadows form within the mist, stretching along beams and guardrails, shifting in ways that defy direct observation. When approached, these forms vanish, leaving nothing but empty space and a lingering unease. Sounds on the overpass are altered by the fog. Voices echo strangely, footsteps carry farther or shorter than expected, and every movement is amplified or distorted. Visitors often hear their names called, whispered or shouted, though no one is present. The effect is disorienting, creating the impression of presence without source. The repetition of a name, echoing from multiple directions, makes the environment feel alive, aware, and responsive. The history of Crimson Fog Overpass contributes to its reputation. Multiple deaths have occurred here over the years, accidents and misfortunes that have left an indelible mark on the location. The fog seems to carry the memory of these events, settling over the bridge as darkness falls, transforming the ordinary into a space where past and present coexist. Travelers describe a heightened awareness, sensing that every step is observed, every movement noted by forces beyond immediate perception. The structure itself enhances the atmosphere. Beams and railings catch the red fog in sharp lines and angles, creating contrasts that suggest forms that may not exist. Light from distant vehicles glimmers off wet surfaces, refracting through mist in ways that distort depth and perspective. Every corner and junction of the overpass becomes a stage where shadows play, fleeting and unpredictable, creating a sense that the environment is both familiar and alien at the same time. Visitors often feel a presence behind them, subtle but undeniable. A brush along the arm, a sensation of breath near the ear, or a shift in air pressure suggests someone is walking just out of sight. The experience is fleeting and unthreatening, yet persistent, heightening vigilance and anticipation. Each crossing becomes deliberate, every step measured, as if the overpass itself is guiding behavior, ensuring attention and respect for its history and the events it has witnessed. The fog moves in patterns that seem to respond to movement. Gathers more densely around pillars when people linger, swirling along guardrails when attention is focused. Light filtering through headlights or nearby street lamps transforms the crimson haze into a dynamic ever-changing environment. Shadows appear more distinct in some areas, less in others, creating a rhythm that feels intentional, a pulse that governs the experience of those who traverse the bridge. Even during brief moments of silence, the overpass exerts influence. The air feels heavier, the ground firmer yet somehow resonant. Echoes of previous visitors, vehicles, and accidents seem embedded in the structure, perceptible through sound, vibration, and intuition. The combination of fog, shadow, and subtle movement crafts an immersive environment, drawing attention to the smallest details, encouraging reflection, and amplifying perception. And amplifying perception. The combination of fog, shadow, and subtle movement crafts an immersive environment, drawing attention to the smallest details, encouraging reflection, and amplifying perception. Crossing Crimson Fog Overpass leaves a lasting impression. Visitors often pause at the end, glancing back toward the span and the shifting crimson mist. Shadows linger at the periphery of vision, whispers echo faintly, and the memory of being observed persists. The experience is not threatening, but immersive, a reminder of the bridge's layered history and its ability to affect those who enter its space. The overpass is more than a passage over a highway. It is a repository of memory, perception, and presence. Figures within the fog. The sound of names called. And the shifting crimson haze create an environment where the ordinary is infused with extraordinary awareness. Travelers become attuned to the bridge, the fog, and the subtle interactions between past events and present perception. Leaving with an understanding that some places hold more than their physical structure, influencing thought, feeling, and attention long after the final step has been taken. Crimson Fog Overpass remains a striking example of how environment and history merge. The fog, the shadows, the whispers, and the memories of past events combine to create a unique and immersive experience. Each crossing invites awareness, reflection, and a measured respect, ensuring that the overpass continues to leave a profound impression on those who traverse it, long after they have departed. Thank you for crossing the haunted bridges of Pennsylvania with me tonight. The roads and rivers may seem quiet during the day, but at night, these bridges remember. They remember accidents, tragedies, and restless souls. Some travelers leave shaken, some haunted, and some never return. If you ever find yourself walking or driving across these bridges after dark, remember these tales. Listen carefully, step lightly, and ask yourself, would you dare to cross when the fog rises and the shadows stir? Rest well, my friend, until our next haunted journey.